Why do you think mental health is not popular in the Philippines?
If you look at Filipino culture in particular, there's mental health and well-being all over the place. The concepts of pakikisama, pakiramdam, they're beautiful words. These are mental health things. It's just that we don't make that deliberate connection. So to me, the concept of mental health, while it sounds new, to me, it's actually not. It's just that we use the Western word of mental health, which we don't have a direct translation for, right? That's why it sounds foreign.
Hey, fellow adults! Let's figure adult life together.
Because adulting wasn't taught in school. Listen to stories and questions and sometimes expert advice on
Adulting, self-development, finding stability, relationships, health, well-being, and more. Because it's an adult thing!
Hi everyone!
Hello!
We're back!
It's me, Nica.
Me, Carla.
And Azel.
Now we have a special guest.
Yes. Because we are going to talk about mental health today. So we asked an expert to come in and guide our discussion.
Sinech Itech.
Okay,
expert
I will
na ito.
introduce Syempre, I will introduce the guest. So, we have with us Dr. Ronald Del Castillo. So, he's a doctor of psychology and he has a master's degree in public health. And he teaches in the University of the Philippines, Manila. And he has this advocacy online. It's DIWA Mental Health.
Welcome back here, sir!
Yay! Welcome
It's good to be back.
Di nga
Miss
siya,
you.
di nga siya tumayo ng upuan eh.
Long time no see. Okay, so we're gonna talk about mental health.
In general?
In general, it's like an introduction to it. So
It's our first time actually to really have an episode purely about mental health.
Yes.
But before that,
Yes. What? Oh, before that. So we have
kinabahan si Nica.
what? So we have this weekly catch-up segment in the podcast where we talk about our adulting highlights of the week. Okay, so Carla will share first.
Usually ikaw ah.
It's always me.
Sige, para iba naman si Hazel.
Handa ka din ah.
I'm prepared.
Okay, napasa sa akin. Okay, sige, highlight. One of the gifts I received nitong New Year ay it's a 2020 planner from Muji. And meron na kasi akong another notebook dedicated for my to-do list. So, I decided na yung 2020 planner na yun ay gagamitin ko na lang to pang-track ng mga activities ko na events na nangyayari sa araw-araw ko.
Okay.
Ang concern ko kasi noong 2019, parang feeling ko, iniisip ko lang to kasi hindi rin ako nagtitingin ng data masyado. Yun yung problem sa people. Laging emotions yung tinitingnan natin, hindi yung exact na mga nangyari.
Okay.
So like kung iniisip ko, parang ang uneventful ng 2019. Pero nagtitingin naman ako ng photos ko sa phone ko, I rarely post. So, hindi rin accurate, hindi accurate representation ng buhay ko yung social media ko. Because I'm a very private person. So, pag may mga events, marami akong photos sa phone, never on my social media accounts. So, tingin ako ng photos, ang dami naman nangyayari.
Yeah.
So, to actually label 2019 as uneventful, parang hindi yun fair sa akin at sa 2019 ko. So, nitong January, so I started writing kung ano naman nangyari sa day na yon. Not necessarily what I felt, kasi dami palang journal. Dami palang
What I
sinusulat.
felt, what I thought, what I bought.
Dami palang sinusulat pag uwi. Anyway, so I was writing. Tapos, nakikita ko din na, oh my God, ang daming nangyayari. 'Di ba? And, kaya rin naman nagiging boring sa tingin natin at uneventful ang isang araw, ang isang linggo, or isang taon is, hindi rin kasi tayo nag-e-effort. Kung feeling ko wala masyadong nangyayari, I try to, alam mo yun, mag-schedule na mga gagawin. Dapat yung mga ginagawa ko sa personal life ko is things I really value at nakakatulong talaga for me. Things I really want to do, not what I think other people want me to do. So, sobrang helpful for the last 2 weeks, itong previous weeks, and counting. Wow! Yun. So, nakikita ko na ang dami ko naman palang nangyayari. Ang na-learn ko rin doon is, hindi naman kailangan parating ang taas-taas ng araw mo. Sobrang, ang normal naman kasi is, mas na lang okay siya. Yun, it can be just neutral lang. It doesn't have to be bad, doesn't have to be good. You just have to be okay. So yun yung highlight ko.
Ma'am, very good yung pag-journal Kasi na-encounter ko sa Stumbling on Happiness ni Dan Gilbert. Sabi niya, we're super bad at remembering how we felt in the past. Pero pag nag-journal ka, not only yung event, pero how you felt about it, marirealize natin na, uy, ang saya ko pala nung araw na yon. Na-tarnish lang sa memory natin. So, nice that we're recording our lives as it passes.
Pero yun kasi parang feelings, emotions, they pass. So, ang basis ko is the data I have nung araw na yun.
Very scientific.
ano? Panalo na. Okay. See you next.
Carla!
Highlight ko, I'm on my 3rd book for the year.
Bilis.
Diba? Yung rate ko so far, mga 1 book per week. Kaya ako nakakabasa ng maraming books kasi audiobook lahat na binabasa ko. So, traffic pa lang, isang araw lang yung isang audiobook, diba? So, yun. For me, learning should never cease. Especially now when we're adults, wala na tayo sa school, diba? So, pwede tayong mag-fall sa illusion na, tapos na yung pag-aaral ko. But we have to keep on learning, especially on adulting because it wasn't taught in school nga, diba?
Correct.
So, talagang kanya-kanyang effort to learn about life in many aspects of our lives. So, good job ako sa continuous learning endeavor
Pat on the back.
Yes. I was physically patting my own self, guys. Just so you know.
My highlight is,
Yes.
super proud. Charot.
Sige, ano yan?
Sobrang simple lang nito, hindi to bongga. Regularly ko na naiinom yung vitamins ko. Yan. Kasi meron akong isang lata ng isang bottle of vitamins. Hindi ko siya naiinom. I always forget. So now, ginawa ko, nilagay ko na siya sa table. So every time I eat, I'm reminded to drink my vitamins. So yun. Very good ako doon.
Good job. May natututunan tayo sa podcast na to, ma'am.
So I learned that to create a habit, you have to see it.
Yes.
Yun. So
Make
naalala
it
ko
visible.
siya. So yun. Vitamins every day.
Sa lagay ba tayo lang mag-share?
Yeah, hindi pwede.
Hindi
Dapat
pwede. Dapat Sir Ronald.
Sir Ronald.
Wow. All right. I feel pressured. The highlight today is the first day of teaching Introduction to Public Health to the freshmen in our college, at the College of Public Health. So that was an absolute joy for me. There's 84, 85 of them.
Students?
Students, yeah, it's a big class. Yeah, it's a big class. I mean, they eventually split off, but anyway, I don't know. It's wonderful to see wide-eyed and curious first-year students. Many of them are in public health because they want to be doctors and physicians. But my role as faculty, as a professor, is always to question why you want to do what you want to do or what you think you want to do. And
So, ang ending, Sir, 8 na lang yung estudyante mo.
yes.
Ending ng
It's wonderful to see, to see their beginning, I guess, the beginning of their journey at UP in public health, and I always enjoy that. So that for sure is the highlight. Yeah.
First day high.
Yes,
First-
yes.
Okay, let's get down to business.
Okay. Sir, tulad naman ng na-figure out na siguro natin ngayon, no? Mukhang advocacy mo talaga yung mental health. Why is that so? Paano ka napunta sa journey or passion na to?
I think we get into the profession that we're in because of something personal.
Yeah.
I think that's true for many people. For me, it was very straightforward. I grew up with an aunt. She died a few years ago with paranoid schizophrenia. I had always known my aunt to be psychotic. She was hearing voices, particularly like the police was out to get her, and I'm smiling because you need a sense of humor to understand that, because they lived across the street from the police station. So the fact that she had paranoia about that, I mean, you need a sense of humor to really understand that. In connection to that, I got into the profession that I am in. Because of something that I learned from my lolo that I would later come to know as what's called community-based mental health. And that is my aunt was always included in our family activities, in decision making. She was never excluded. And to my knowledge, she was never institutionalized, which is a very fortunate thing given what we know about mental health here in the Philippines. So, and I would later come to know that as community-based mental health. So I learned from my lolo, how do you respect people with mental health problems and still consider them as people,
Yeah.
right? And so, and that's why I got into the profession that I'm in. Yeah.
And particularly in the Philippines, because you did not grow up here,
Yeah,
diba?
yeah.
Can you talk
Yeah,
about-
exactly. So I'm from Iloilo, and I think like many of our mothers, my mother was a nurse. She worked in Saudi Arabia for about first 10 years of my life. She saved all that money. We moved to the U.S. when it was much easier to move to the U.S. I grew up in California. So I've been there since 1991. But 5 years ago, I came back here to the Philippines permanently because in 2014, I was here doing field work. I was assessing the Region 6, the mental health care system of Region 6 for human rights violations. Anyway, I was here for 3 months, and I have a very distinct memory of sitting in a jeepney from our town outside of Iloilo to go to the city in Iloilo because I was based at the regional office in the city, and there was a live chicken next to me. And you've been to, I'm sure you've been to those jeepney rides before, right? There's a bench in the middle, there are people on the roof, the side, like it's all over the place. Anyway, I was sitting next to a person holding a live chicken with his bare hands, and like a light bulb came into my head, and I'm like, you know what? This is where I want to be. And so
in a jeepney?
like I want to be back in the Philippines, and do a reverse migration, I guess. And so after I graduated with my, so I have a doctorate, but then I went back to school for a master's in public health. After I got my master's, a few months later, I flew back, and here I am. Voila, 5 years later. Yeah.
Happy ka naman sa naging decision mo,
Oh
sir,
yeah,
sa
absolutely.
pagbalik
Oh,
na
I don't
to.
regret it at all. Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I do still get the question of why did you come back? But the question is usually tinged with judgment. Like, why did you come back? Like, there's the tone of like you had an opportunity to leave. Like, why would you?
Like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Which makes total sense. I get why people want to leave. I get that. But for me, it's important to be doing whatever it is you're doing. To find meaning in your work, but not only meaning, but also enjoyable. You got to like your work, but also find meaning in it. And for me, that was here. And so
Philippines.
that's why I'm here.
Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
Mabuhay.
And how about DIWA Mental Health? How did that start? Why did you?
Yeah, so when I came back through UP. UP has a thing called the Balik PhD program where they try to recruit people who've been educated abroad. As you know very well, a lot of our people leave.
Mga
And so,
ilustrado.
right, so UP has an effort to encourage people to come back. Anyway, I came back through that program, and it came with a research grant, and I decided, you know what kind of research I want to do. So the big research I'm doing related to this was the mental health of UP students. And so I called it the DIWA Mental Health Survey, right? I was looking for a term, right? So I used DIWA.
Because DIWA means...
Like your psyche, your body and mind connection.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to use that as an umbrella term, but since that research, it has expanded to other things. So any project I do is under that term of DIWA, of DIWA mental health. Yeah.
So, sir, in your social media post, you use the phrase mental health and well-being. So, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I purposely use both often. Even though they actually mean the same thing. And the reason for that is because the context that we are in. Meaning, here in the Philippines, we think of mental health actually as the illness and disorders, right? Like when we talk about mental health, eventually we'll end up talking about depression or anxiety because we make a direct connection between mental health and the illness and the disorders, even though that's not what it actually means, right? Mental well-being, mental health is something else entirely. The illness or the disorders is a component of that, but it's not the whole definition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So mental health is essentially, do I have depression or I don't? Do I have anxiety or maybe have a little bit of anxiety, right? But well-being is your level of contentment, your level of happiness, and other aspects of health. In other words, it's possible to be depressed and be doing all right. Right? Because yes, I have chronic depression, but you know what? Today, I'm all right. I'm happy. I'm good. Right? So for me, it's important to have both because I think most of us will never have depression, but will feel not so good. Right? So for instance, most of us will be stressed out, will feel lonely, will feel rejected, which are not disorders. Right, which are not illnesses, mental illnesses, right? So to have the understanding, to have both kinds of understanding, I think, is important because, for me, fundamentally, a related question is, if someone has depression, can they also be well at the same time? And the answer to that is absolutely. You can have depression, but also go to work, go to school, have a job, and have friends, right? Here, if we only focus on mental health, it's usually one or the other, right? Either you have depression or you don't, which I don't find helpful. I think you can have depression and be going to school and be going to work, which is the well-being part.
Yeah. Because then again, we have diabetics who are
Functional.
Functional.
Are doing
They have
great.
careers.
Absolutely. Yeah,
dedicated.
absolutely. Right. It's not one or the other. It's possible to have both.
And ang interesting nung sinabi ni Sir na ang una nating naisip when we mention mental health is
Sakit.
sakit.
Oo, agad.
When we can also view mental health as something we can optimize. So even if we are not sick, we can be interested in mental health just for the sake of optimizing our own. Parang physical health.
Umiinom ka ng vitamins.
Yeah.
To stay healthy
To stay
physically.
healthy.
Not because you're sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, nag-exercise tayo hindi lang dahil tumaas na yung blood pressure natin, pero just because we want to be stronger. Diba? So yeah, we can view mental health that way, and we should, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I think mental health is the way I define mental health is actually it's pretty straightforward. It's how we think, it's how we feel, and it's how we behave, such that it promotes our well-being. So how we think, feel, and behave. Does that affect your work, your relationships, your schooling, for instance? Yeah.
Mental health is for everyone.
Yes. My question is, why do you think mental health is not popular in the Philippines or to Filipinos? Popular meaning one is availability or access to people who can help you with your mental health, and another one is accepting the concept. So, parang, why do you think
I
that
think
is?
I think that's a good question, and part of that, of course, is stigma. Mental health as the word, as the phrase, and this goes back to the previous question, right? Because it's about depression, illness, disorders, and so forth, or what's wrong with you, or something like that. Then it makes sense why it's stigmatizing, right? And so that's why we don't talk about it. That's why it's not really highlighted. But part of that is the fact that our foundational understanding of what it is not accurate, right? Meaning it's not the disorder or the illness, right? It's something else, right? So I think the premise is not accurate to begin with, so it makes sense that it's stigmatizing. But if you look at Filipino culture in particular, there's mental health and well-being all over the place. Meaning, the concepts of family, the concepts of social integration, the concepts of pakikisama, pakiramdam, all these kinds of things that I don't really speak Filipino, but they're beautiful words. These are mental health things. It's just that we don't make that deliberate connection, even though in my view it is. It's very much a mental health thing. So to me, the concept of mental health, while it sounds new, to me it's actually not. It's just that we use the Western word of mental health, which we don't have a direct translation for, right? That's why it sounds foreign.
Okay.
But again, if you look at especially literature of Psikolohiyang Pilipino, there's a lot of good stuff there. Of indigenous psychology.
Even our rituals and traditions, no? Yung mga dalamhati, pakikiramay, luksa.
Yeah, yes, of course. All of that promotes mental health and social support. It's just that we don't call it mental health, right? We call it something else. But to me, the premise is the same.
What about availability of mental health?
Yeah, I think for some people who maybe want to reach out and ask for help, absolutely. I mean, that's an ongoing concern for us. It's a growing area. I think that's great. I think there's more students graduating as psychometricians, right, as psychologists, people entering psychiatry and social work guidance and counseling. I think that's good. I think that's great. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's still very much lacking, and that's something that we need to grow on. And I think but that particular area of the field itself also needs a lot of work. You know, a lot of psychometricians end up in human resources.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's important. But to me, that suggests that more needs to be done in regards to the education and training of people who study psychology, right? If I end up only much in human resources or industrial psychology, then that's very narrow. You know?
Kasi doon may better opportunities.
Exactly. So which means we need to do better as a culture, as a society, to okay, how can we expand the opportunities outside of human resources, for instance?
All factor din kaya sa availability yung parang socioeconomic capability ng tao?
Yes, absolutely. I think for some people, it's not accessible because, they not only physically, like geographically,
Yeah.
right? The psychologist is 20 kilometers away or something like that.
Yeah.
But also, it's expensive. You know, it's expensive. A lot of insurance are not, does not cover outpatient psychotherapy, which
Yeah.
means you have to pay out of pocket. So if you have chronic depression, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to keep going and
Yeah.
paying for therapy, for instance, or even psychiatric medication, right?
Yeah.
So that can lead to what we call in public health catastrophic healthcare, right? You keep paying for your own healthcare when it should be covered by insurance, right? And for some people, especially if you're in the informal sector, you don't have an employer who covers your insurance, then that can be very difficult, especially,
Oo nga, no? The fact na hindi covered sa maraming insurance ang mental health,
Yeah.
it already
Makes it inaccessible.
sanctions
Yeah, absolutely.
mental health in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yan. So, if ever may nakikinig dito na lawmaker or something, I think there's a policy change that has to be done kung ganong aspect na ng...
Yes, and a couple of years ago, almost a year and a half ago now, right? The mental health law, the Philippine Mental Health Act was passed, I think around June 2018, and then last year, January 2019, the rules and regulations came out, the implementing rules and regulations came out. So I think it's a good start. I think it's a good start. We're definitely headed in that direction. So it is promising, but absolutely. That's why it's for me as someone who came back 5 years ago, it's an exciting time to be in mental health because I feel like it's getting off the ground and it's cool to be part of that process.
So, we're hopeful.
Yeah,
there will be
yes,
change.
absolutely, sure. Yeah.
So maybe nasa early stages pa lang tayo. It's not like it's
Yes.
hopeless. We're
Yes.
getting there.
Yeah.
Good job.
Alright.
Also, sir, nabanggit mo na DIWA means our psyche, meaning yung mind-body connection natin. Sa culture kasi natin ngayon, popular yung duality ng body and mind or body and psyche as if they're two totally separate entities. So can you enlighten us on the mind and body connection, the physical health and the mental health?
Yeah, I think in some studies, for instance, in Western studies, when they have Asian or Pacific Islander samples as part of the study, the Asians and Pacific Islanders tend to describe physical complaints. Right? I have a headache, I have a backache, even though they actually don't have a headache or a backache. In other words, they use physical complaints as a substitute for emotional concerns. So instead of saying I'm sad, I'm gonna say I have a headache. Do you see what I mean? But that's not to say that what they're saying is false. If anything, it is very much consistent with this body and mind thing.
Yeah.
Meaning that the way I feel, think is connected to how I experience my body, right? So my body, my backache, for instance, could very well suggest that I am in fact feeling sad or feeling low or anxious or whatever it is. And to me, that's an advantage because if you have difficulty in a culture expressing how you feel, but more comfortable explaining how you physically feel, then to me, that's an opportunity. All right, how can we utilize that to our advantage? That when a patient comes in with, I have a headache, I have a backache, or whatever it is, maybe that's an avenue to talk about mental health and well-being, right? Because you're using that language of describing physical complaints. But in any case, body and mind is absolutely connected. Our physical health is connected to our mental health, and vice versa. Like I'm doing a study right now, for instance, of people with who are living with HIV, which is a physical problem. But we know from studies elsewhere that people living with HIV are also at an increased risk for mental health issues, right? For a number of things, including maybe when their family find out that they're HIV positive, maybe they're isolated, they're excluded, right? And that could lead to, right, depression, anxiety, so forth. So of course, it's very much related and connected. Yeah.
Actually, feeling ko nga inseparable silang dalawa.
Absolutely,
No?
yeah, yeah.
Kasi sa amin din, sir, based on our own experiences, like me, if I lack sleep or kung PMS ako, iba yung pakiramdam ko. Not
Yeah.
only physical pakiramdam, but how I feel about myself
Absolutely.
and how I respond to the world outside of me.
Yeah, that's mental health as well.
If we come to think of it, no, actually yung yung toddler anak ng kaibigan ko pa yung nag-point out na napaisip ako. Her dad was talking about mind and body or something. And then she said, "But dad, the brain is part of the body." So parang, oo nga no. So why do we keep on separating those two things?
I love it. How old is this girl?
Back then, maybe she was like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6.
Oh, cute! So
Very
smart.
So simple, no? How did we forget about that fact growing up, diba?
Okay, so our next question is, in our modern society, what do you think are some rampant yet invisible factors that harm people's mental health?
Oh gosh, many, I think. You should read Gia Tolentino's Trick Mirror. It just came out a few months ago. She's a Filipino-Canadian. She also writes for The New Yorker, which is my favorite magazine. I think there's a lot of things, especially among young people, including millennials and Generation Z. Even like listening to all of us here, the word performance, the word optimizing, she has an entire essay on optimizing. Like for instance, like people who wear athleisure, she makes fun of it. It's fascinating. Anyway, no, the point merely there is I think there's a lot of pressure on young people these days to perform, to optimize, to perfect. To always be better without really know what that is, right? What is better?
Yung hustle culture.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I think that's an invisible expectation and an unrealistic one. I think that's a pressure on us. I think it doesn't help, perhaps, that in social media also. It's hard to navigate the use of social media without feeling so personally affected by it. As an example, for instance, my social media use is very deliberate. My use of social media is professional in nature. My Instagram, my Twitter is all professionally related. I don't have a personal account with the exception of another Facebook account. So I have 2 Facebook accounts.
Hanapin natin yan.
But my point merely there is that I think for some young people, it's hard to delineate, who I am personally and how I am related to social media, and what is my social media use for. I think is another pressure for a lot of young people.
So tama ba, sir, ang pagkaintindi namin na you're pointing out 2 connected things or factors? First is the pressure to perform, and second is to show it on social media.
Yeah, I think yes, I exactly. Gia's point in her book, especially in the first chapter, is social media posting is essentially performance. You are performing, right? So it makes sense that you want to put on the right makeup, the right angle, because you are performing.
Yeah.
Whether we are conscious about it or not.
Yes, I exactly. And she comes from a place of social psychology, wherein our everyday life, we are performing. This is performance right now,
yes.
right? You are seeing me, but since we don't know each other, I am displaying what you think I am. right? So I'm performing right in front of you. It's maximized through social media, right? Because nothing happens in social media unless you post. Right? I mean, nothing ever happens. And so you need to post, right? Which means the posting must be deliberately performed, right? And so, but that's exhausting because you're always performing,
Yeah.
right? And that's the part that I think her one of her key points in the book is that the pressure to always perform is unrealistic and not good for our mental health ultimately.
Just to clarify, because I don't want us naman to come across our audiences na we're discouraging each other from getting better, from being better people. So are you with us in thinking that it's perfectly fine to want to be better, to aspire to be better, but it's the pressure we put upon ourselves that might be harmful?
Yeah, of course. I think it's fine to pursue whatever you feel is best for you, your aspirations, your dreams, your career goals. I think all that's good. But also, I'm coming from a place where you are amazing the way you are.
You are enough.
Exactly. So, but for some people, it's hard to believe that. It's one thing to hear it, it's another to feel it, right?
Yes.
So for some people, they don't feel like they're enough. They don't feel valued, or they don't feel that they matter, and so that's why it's hard to delineate sometimes, right? Am I performing, or am I? Yes, I'm trying to be a better person, or am I optimizing and performing, right? That's hard to delineate. Like one of the things, again, I don't know why I'm plugging the book because I love the book, is that one of the things she puts up in the essays that she writes is, why do people post? And so it made me reflect on the stuff that I see on Instagram and Facebook. Like Instagram, for instance, like these influencers, which is such a self-conceit. It's a funny word. Like when you're posting, the fact that you went to the gym and your shirt is off. Like, what does that do to society? Like, what are you doing? How does it move forward? How does it improve other people's lives?
Sometimes it can be inspirational.
Yeah, my inspirations are
inspiration.
in social media, for example.
But sometimes, if I see too much of it, parang it
Right.
gives me unnecessary pressure na I have to look like this.
But
I
I
have
think
to-
for some, and that's a good point, and I think for some of us, the post on social media substitutes for action.
yeah.
Like, meaning, I gave my opinion about this issue, and now I'm done. But the thing is, your opinion doesn't actually change the actual
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah. I
right?
get.
So,
Okay.
but these days, we post to the extent that actually no action is done. We feel that the post is sufficient to meet the change we believe we are making.
I see.
Yeah.
So it gives us the illusion of importance.
Well, it gives the illusion that you've done something.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
us
Yeah,
important and relevant.
Gets.
If you feel like you want to post and all that jazz, I think that's fine. But I think it's important for us to reflect on, why are we posting?
Yeah.
Does it move society forward?
It's nice that nililinaw ni Sir Ronald na we don't intend to judge people who post in social media because, the three of us do.
Yeah.
Not as often nga lang. Pero yeah, it's very nice to reflect on our own intentions. Kasi not only dahil it might annoy other people, but it might, and it probably is actually harming us in the long run by putting pressure in ourselves to perform.
Can I add to that?
I love that you raise your hand.
Yeah. She does that every podcast.
So if you're gonna check my social media accounts,
Yes,
I
Eliza.
post like once a year or never at all. I think noong 2018 wala yata ako na post or something like that. Lagi ko kasing iniisip, do I not want to be judged? Or ano ba talaga yung intention ko of posting? Nasa-stress ako dun sa thought pa lang ng anong ipopost ko? Or anong ika-caption ko dito?
Yeah.
So, I think gets ko yung sinasabi ni Sir na merong pressure to be something, someone. And yung sinasabi ni Nica na yung mga fitspiration, yeah, kasi meron akong mga fina-follow na YouTube fitness vloggers. Pero if it's too much, nagmumukhang yung life mo is hindi normal. Na ang normal is laging dapat the best yung life mo. So I try to live my life outside social media. Kasi yun yung totoo ko talagang buhay.
I've been fortunate enough to meet influencers here in the Philippines. I know for sure that many of them take hours to prepare just to have a picture before it is posted on Instagram.
It is.
Yes,
The
it's
effort
true.
it takes, but then when you look at Instagram, it looks as if they just they're hanging out or whatever.
Sobrang casual
But it's
lang.
not. They actually prepared with their personal assistants on the makeup, on the clothing. So there, to me, there's clear performance there.
Yeah.
But then it made me wonder, why? What does it do? Does it do? I mean, it's one thing if you want to get something out of that, and that's one thing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We all want to be liked, and I mean, that's perfectly fine. But again, at the end of the day, how does it help society, in general,
Maybe in the short term, it helps us by having validation.
Yeah.
And tulad nga nung napag-usapan namin ng friend ko, si Sheena, na-realize namin, validation is addicting, no? Even if we do not articulate it to ourselves na, magpo-post ako sa Instagram, gusto ko ng validation ngayon eh.
And it can be quite complex, and I think for many influencers, for instance, how do you use your platform? What do you advocate for? So, for instance, very recently, I don't know her name, so you have to forgive me, but she's a popular makeup artist. She came out as trans just recently. This was, I think, in the last
Nikki
24 hours. Yeah,
tutorials.
and I think that's amazing, right? So she does these tutorials. I've never seen them, but apparently she does tutorials of how to put on makeup, blah blah blah, which is great, and that's amazing. If you like putting on makeup, maybe she's the person to go to. But the fact that she came out as trans is significant because she's using that platform to present an example and use representation. Look, there's a trans person out there who can be influential in a positive way, and I think that's beautiful. Although, however, having said that, I doubt that for many influencers that's what they do. I think for many influencers no, it's very much performance and
Also money. I guess.
exactly right. Yeah.
For us who consume, hindi tayo nagpo-post. I think it's skill din na ma-sift mo kung sino lang yung mga ifa-follow mo. Yeah, and be mindful if this person, anong epekto nun sa'yo?
Yeah.
Mentally. So yun, does this person make me feel motivated, inspired, or does this person make me feel intimidated or not enough?
And I think the challenge we face, especially as young people in social media, also is that we are not really taught either by family, by parents, and how to manage our social media use.
Yeah.
So the learning almost has to come from elsewhere.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm sure you know this very well. When, for instance, on Instagram, when you start looking at certain pictures, you'll notice that the search function will search for those things, which means the algorithm actually prevents you from looking at other things that you could possibly also enjoy, right? So if you're looking at the fitspiration kind of person, then eventually you'll see a bunch of people with their shirt off at the gym or whatever, right? So I wonder if many people know that, right? Which means you have to deliberately almost change your search or deliberately look at other pictures so that the algorithm will change again.
And I think nasa disadvantaged position tayo because I have this, personal theory na in every revolution, like technological revolution or food revolution, industrial revolution, yung first generation to experience that becomes the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And sa technological revolution or information revolution, I think tayo yon, millennials yon. We are the last generation
To experience life
without internet.
Yeah.
And the first ones also to grow up using it.
Yeah.
So yung mga bad effects niya, good effects and bad effects niya, nalalaman lang after decades of us using the technology.
Correct.
So obviously, I think we cannot judge ourselves for not knowing beforehand what would have happened because it's totally new. It was unprecedented.
Yeah.
Kaya ngayon lang din natin nalalaman na, oh my God, meron palang negative effects tong mga pinagagawa natin which was not tested before in another generation.
Yeah.
I was fiddling with my phone because hindi ko kasi hindi ko matandaan yung sinabi ni Yuval Noah Harari, one of my favorite authors. Sabi niya to sa book na 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. In the age of Facebook and Instagram, you can observe this myth-making process more clearly than ever before because some of it has been outsourced from the mind to the computer. It is fascinating and terrifying to behold people who spend countless hours constructing and embellishing a perfect self online, becoming attached to their own creation, and mistaking it for the truth about themselves. People ask, "Who am I?" and expect to be told a story. The first thing you need to know about yourself is that you are not a story.
Ganda.
And for every post that we put into our social media accounts, it's contributing to the story we make up, not only for those people who see it, but also to ourselves. So there's a huge tendency and possibility and probability that it's taking us away from the authentic selves that we already all are.
Yeah.
So, another question is there a certain group of people in the Philippines who are most at risk of mental health issues, like a certain gender, age, or socioeconomic class?
I think we're all at risk for mental health issues. But yes, some people are more vulnerable to these kinds of things. For instance, we know that socioeconomic status, poverty in particular, is extremely stressful.
Actually, may nabasa po ako before na poverty itself actually is traumatic.
Absolutely, it can be absolutely, and
It's a
so
form of trauma in itself.
it's a chronic pressure on you, and so of course. And when that's the case, then you're at increased risk for these kinds of problems, including depression or anxiety. Of course, young people especially, also between especially teenagers and up to the age of 25, are vulnerable to mental health concerns by virtue of their age and by virtue of their life transition, right? For many young people especially, it's their first time away from home, especially if you go away for college, for instance. So that can be a very, a stressful time or difficult time for some people. And physiologically speaking, bodily changes is also related to that. So coupled with, let's say being stressed away from home, then you are increased risk for those kinds of things. I'm less sold on whether or not, let's say, women are more vulnerable. Well, they're more vulnerable in a sense that we live in a patriarchal society. So, for instance, we believe that women are more depressed than men. But I always point out that actually in experimental studies, for instance, when a female patient comes in with symptoms of depression, she's more likely to be diagnosed with depression. However, when a male patient comes in with the exact same symptoms, he is more likely to be diagnosed with a heart problem. Which begs the question, why? We believe that women are depressed and we believe men have heart problems. Which means, are we overdiagnosing women and underdiagnosing men? Right? Even because in epidemiological surveillance, there's no significant difference between the experience of depression between men and women. Right? So those are sociocultural factors also that we need to take into consideration. And lastly, we are all vulnerable to certain kinds of mental health problems by virtue of our trajectory in life. When you're young, for instance, so issues of autism, ADHD, right, those kinds of things. I mean, another neglected topic, I think, especially here in the Philippines, but I think all over the world, is the mental health of the elderly. And seniors, right? We don't really talk about those, And so I think that's something that we need to talk about. Yes, we respect our elderly, as we tend to say here in Filipino culture, but we don't really think about their mental health and mental well-being. And so I think that's a growing area that needs to be looked into.
Sobrang, syempre, nag-stick sa akin pinaka yung sabi ni Sir about the elderly kasi I'm very close to my lola. Lately kasi, with the intention of making her life easier, we provided her with house help para less chores for her.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I was expecting na super matutuwa siya about that. I didn't expect that malulungkot siya because sa kanya, parang nawawala na siya ng silbi.
Yes, exactly.
Gets.
And I kept on insisting na, no, Lola, it's for you. It's ganyan. So, parang siya, yun nga, nung binoise out niya na she feels useless na. Sobrang tagus yun sa akin. So, nag-compromise na lang kami na every other day na lang.
Papasok
yung
I think
help.
that's an excellent example. I mean, that's an excellent example of a thing called benevolent bias, where our help is actually patronizing. We're trying to help other people, but actually it is patronizing because the help subsumes a judgment we're making, and that is, oh, you're vulnerable and therefore you need help. Right? Instead of including them in the decision making. I'm like, oh, would you like help? And some people will say no. Like one perfect example I have is someone who's Filipino American. Like for instance, this happens a lot at the airport. Especially in international airports. So if you've ever taken a long flight, especially of Philippine Airlines, there's a lot of elderly people, right, waiting to fly off or whatever, right? But almost always there's a wheelchair available, waiting. They are always in wheelchairs. Now, for me, that begs the question, why is that? Now, on the one hand, you could say, oh, we're Filipino, we respect our elderly, we want to be helpful, blah, blah, blah. But there's a part of me that wonders, maybe we think that they're vulnerable and can't do it by themselves, which is patronizing, right? So over time...
And might be disempowering
exactly.
also.
So we inculcate a culture, oh, you're old, you're elderly, you can't do things for yourself, so here's a wheelchair, right? Which is a very, in my view, a disrespectful and disempowering attitude towards the elderly people.
And it also can trigger what Martin Seligman and his research partner found about learned helplessness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that you learn over time that no matter what I do, it would make a difference. Yeah, I feel helpless to do whatever. And because a related issue to that, I'm glad you raised that, is people who do have depression or anxiety. All right. So once we find out a coworker has anxiety or depression, what do? We tiptoe around that person. Oh, we want to make sure she doesn't cry. We want to make sure she doesn't have a panic attack.
Yes.
Like, you see, you're trying to be helpful, but what you're actually doing is reinforcing stigma, because what you're actually doing is you're thinking, oh, you're vulnerable. So you can't. Yeah, we have to be careful around you, and that is not helpful. Yeah, ultimately.
Okay.
What can we do? What are the steps that we can take to be prepared or to be healthier, mentally healthier?
Oh gosh,
Kahit
a
general.
lot.
Yeah, there are a lot.
The actionable one, the most actionable ones.
I mean, a lot. I mean, and I think to me, the basics work. They really do. Surrounding yourself with people you trust, surrounding yourself with good friends and family. I think is important. To be socially integrated is also important. Social support and social integration are two different things. Social support, right, include your friends, your family, but social integration is also interactions you have with people that are not close to you. Like, for instance, in studies where people have mental wellness and live to be over the age of 100, in those communities, those people who live like really old, they are socially integrated. What does that mean? Here in the Philippines, that means, do you talk to your Grab driver? Do you talk to the security guard when you enter the building, right? These are people we don't know, but we have regular interaction with them, right? You talk to the cashier every time you get your lunch at the mall or something like that, right? Social integration means having those kinds of, minute conversations that seems benign, but it shows that you are connected as people. Like there's that human connection, and I think that's important. Again, the usual stuff works. Exercise is extremely important, especially running. Running is cheap. Like, you could run anywhere, and you don't need anything else.
Yes.
Right? So regular exercise is important, especially at least 30 minutes a day. Meditation also works. Meditation has kind of a poor reputation, like a new agey kind of a thing, because I think most people don't know what it is. But if you know how to breathe, you know how to meditate. Because that's all you're doing.
Okay.
You're just breathing, right? I think that's another technique you can use. Having a good night's of sleep, I think, is important. Writing at the end of the day 3 things you are grateful for. Is something to refocus your mind. And related to that is to write down one positive thing that has happened in the last 24 hours. Because our mind is so focused on the negative that we forget something good happened, right? So writing it down allows our brain to relive that moment, right? Yeah, something good happened today, and this is what it was. And writing it down helps because it reminds your brain.
For you, what's one behavior that if people adapt will yield most progress in their mental health?
I think it's something that I have mentioned before. Surrounding yourself with good people.
Good people meaning?
I mean that are supportive to you, who validate you, and again, it doesn't always have to be family. And for many of us in society, we create our own family. So that could be friends, that could be classmates. We are social beings at the end of the day. Even if there are times where we want to be isolated and be left alone, that's perfectly okay. But hopefully, for the majority of that time, you are surrounded by people who support you. And I think that's extremely, extremely crucial.
I find it very interesting that Sir Ronald used the term people who are good for you, not people whom you love. Because there are times when the people whom we love are not necessarily good for us. May nag-react po dito. Secret kung sino, pero...
Absolutely, I exactly. We there are people in our life that we love, but love doesn't always translate to good, right? So yes, I can still love you, but you're not good for me, and so I need to do something else. Right? So,
Nag-iyakan po ang mga tao sa studio.
but you know what I mean? In the same way that we surround ourselves with good people that we don't necessarily love. You know what I mean? Like, in that romantic or in love sense, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we love them in the human sense.
Feeling ko, tip of the iceberg pa lang yung natatouch natin sa
It's
mental health.
really an introduction to mental health.
Mental health 101.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We learned a lot. I learned
Sobra.
a lot
Yes.
today. How about you guys?
Opo.
Sobrang laman nung episode.
Yes.
Oo. Bitin ako, guys. Parang feeling ko 5 minutes pa lang yung lumipas. Pero I crave more of this. What are your takeaways, guys?
What I took away was we have to be hopeful about the mental health industry and may place for growth. Parang it's still evolving, so let's not lose hope. And people are working on it. So I think small stuff like this episode, will help a lot. So, yun. Laban lang. Laban lang tayo, guys. Yun.
Dami ko. Dami ko notes.
Isa lang.
Pili ka lang.
Siguro yung ano na lang, yung sa social media. Na-validate yung want ko to be off of social media.
Yeah.
And na it's okay to use social media professionally. Kasi si Sir Ronald is very intentional kung paano niya ginagamit yung social media accounts.
Yeah.
That's the keyword, no?
Yeah,
Intentional.
intentional.
Ronald pala. That's the keyword, no?
Ronald. Layo.
How about you, Carla?
Isa sa main takeaways ko is that we should start caring for our mental health not when we're sick already,
Yeah.
but way before. Kasi our mental health is something that we've had all along. So, kailan mo pa siya papansinin in times of danger na? So, yeah, you should nurture it like now na. Now na!
Correct. I love it. I love this episode. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for having me again.
Unless may takeaway ka, sir, ah. Sorry, hindi ka namin natanong.
In-assume na natin na wala siyang takeaway.
Oh no, I guess I just want to say thank you to the three of you. I really am appreciative and heartened to see young people focus on mental health. I think you as young people are crucial in promoting mental health and well-being here. So it's here in the country, and so it's great to see young people such as yourselves, and not only young people such as yourselves, but also the ways in which you're doing it, such as this podcast, right? It's not those like boring journal articles or whatever, right? You know, like these kinds of new ways of getting the word out there. I think it's great. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir,
Thank
for calling
you.
us young
Thank you.
people.
Young
pala.
Yun yung takeaway. Pangalawang takeaway.
Would you like to promote your social media account
Yeah,
again?
sure. Again, I run DIWA Mental Health. So there's diwamentalhealth.com. That's my website, which is all my kinds of work. I'm also DIWA Mental Health on Instagram. For Twitter and Facebook, it's at DIWA MH. Of course, mental health. So DIWA MH. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So we release podcasts every Saturday, and we also release quotable quotes and
We share our resources, our
Yes.
legit resources in
Yes.
our Facebook account.
So just follow us for more episodes of It's an Adult Thing.
Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you so much.
Again, this has been
It's an Adult Thing.